Can you continue from where Ayush left? Manak Biswas. Can you hear me? If you are not going to respond, I am going to remove you from this session. Please unmute and speak, Manak. My mic is not working. Gayatri, I am requesting you to please make a note that Manak's mic is not working today.
Okay.
Manak, by when will you rectify your mic? I am asking when. For 30 minutes. Okay. Priyanka, can you continue from where Ayush left?
Sir, you called my name?
Yes, Priyanka, I called you.
Sir, I didn't watch recording, sir.
Okay, you were absent. All right, all right.
Yes, sir.
No worries, no worries. I was not knowing that you were absent. Priya,
Yes, sir.
can you continue from where Ayush left?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Develop backend application by using Spring framework and dependency injections. We are learn and also creating the Maven project using quick start and starting the backend project. Yes, sir.
Anything else we have learned?
Yes, sir. I want to revise.
All right, thanks, Priya. Abhilas,
Yes, sir.
anything was not covered which we have read in the previous session?
Setter injection, sir.
Setter injection. Anything else?
This only, sir. Setter injection.
All right. So more or less, Ayush, Priya, and who was the third one? Who was the third one whom I called?
Service, sir.
Avilas. So thanks for covering all the points which was covered in the previous session. So basically, we started with knowing how to why backend is important, and then we went on to see how we can develop a backend by using Spring framework. We learned about framework and how Spring is called as framework of frameworks because it comprises of several other frameworks, and hence we call it as framework of frameworks. We learned one important concept of Spring, which is inversion of control, and dependency injection is an implementation of inversion of control. We have implemented it implemented dependency injection by using setter injection. Today we will also learn the same inversion of control inside Spring application by using XML configuration. Give me a second. So, shopping application. A shopping application is made up of several logical components that work together to perform business logic of the application. Do you all agree with this statement? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, if you agree with this statement, can you name some of the logical component of a shopping application?
Sir, cart,
Cart,
Login. Payments, homepage.
previous orders,
register, order, uh, pardon me, product,
categories.
categories. Yeah, so there are many logical component which needs to work together. Only all the logical components work together, the shopping application will be um, will be successful. So there are few points that are mentioned in this slide, and by when I read, as I read through those points, you will come to know most of the points you have already covered and you know. So a registered customer will be able to order product while using the application. In order to make a purchase on an e-commerce application, a customer add product to cart, places an order, makes payment. It generally, an e-commerce application generally has customer order product, etc., as what we call as model classes. I hope you understand when I say model classes. Do you understand it
Yes,
when
sir.
I say model
Yes, sir.
class?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, others, those who are unable to unmute and say yes or no, you can just type Y in the chat box, and so that I can get the count and I can assume that all of you are here with me and you have understood it. The application object are dependent on one another. Now, this line, this statement, we will be reading throughout this entire session. We will be reading and we will be revolving around this line only. The application object are dependent on one another. We will see how they are dependent, how we can reduce the dependency among themselves, what will happen if the dependency will be reduced, and how to do it. All those things we will we will see. So a excuse me, a customer add products and makes an order. The order class is dependent on product and customer. Unless and until there will be any product, there will be any customer, this order will not have any existence without a product or a customer, right? I hope in core Java you have read that what kind of relationship is this called when in class we have to create an object of another class. What kind of relationship is it called?
Composition, sir.
Composition relationship. Very good. So In case of composition relationship, there is always a dependency, which means the class that is composed of some other class is dependent on the other class, right? Like order is dependent on product and customer. Unless and until there will be any product, there will be any customer, order class will not have any existence. Or in the other way around, we can say that any change made in customer or product class, the change must be reflected in the order class. This requires us to recompile all the three classes by creating a tight coupling between them. Do you agree to this point? Any change made in product class, let's say now product class is having 10 attributes. I added 2 more attributes. So I need to recompile product class. I need to recompile order class. Unless and until I do that, it won't get reflected. Which means there is a tight coupling between these two classes. Can a tight coupling in application be avoided? Can we provide product and customer object to the order class differently? Can we do it? So let's check on the solution. The object can be passed externally, maybe from another class. Now, how we can do it? See, when I use this, now I am passing the object from the other class by calling the constructor of this order class, and we are assigning the product to this. So see, it won't reduce dependency to much extent, but yes, somewhat, to some extent, it allows loose coupling. So the dependency on the class that provide product and customer object increases. Okay, so try to understand that the dependency from this class, the way it was designed, product equal to new product, customer equal to new customer. You see, here we were creating the object of product and customer, which means the dependency, it was very tightly coupled. Here only we were creating the object, but from this scenario, what we did, we gave the authority to some other class who can inject some object into this class. Are you trying to, are you getting what I am trying to say?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
No, sir. Can you explain once again?
Yeah. So you see this closely. When I am saying product equal to new product and customer equal to new customer, both the class are same. We have dependency of product and customer over here. Inside the constructor, I am creating the object of product and customer, which means this is tightly coupled. Why it is tightly coupled? Because object creation is done inside the constructor of the order class, right? Which means it is dependent on the order
Order
on the
constructor.
constructor, yeah, on the constructor of order class to create the object of product and customer. But slightly in a different way, what we did is we said that no, I will pass the product object and customer object, and then I will initialize it with what we have declared here as a reference. So the creation, the power of creating the object is, has been given to someone else, right? So you can say little bit of dependency which was with the order class has been taken away and given to someone else. right?
Yes, sir.
Is it
Yes, sir.
understood?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So to some extent, we have done loose coupling to some extent. I am not telling to the great extent. Still, it is dependent only, but to some extent we have done loose coupling. So let's see how inversion of control is implemented inside Spring application by using XML configuration. So we have already seen one part of it. Describe wiring, implement setter based dependency injection, which we have already done, but we did it only for a single object. We didn't do it when we have these kind of multiple objects, which means multiple object means like order class is dependent on or sorry, inside order class we have an object of product and object of customer. So this kind of setter injection we have not we didn't do it previously, so we will do that. And we will also learn about constructor based dependency injection, wherein we can inject or we can pass the object to the constructor of the order class, or you can say any class. How we can pass the object to the constructor, and then how we can propagate it. We will define the scope of bean and life cycle of bean. Now, these 2 points, when it will come, I'm telling you, these 2 points is important, especially life cycle of a bean. It is not asked in any interview, but still, it is extremely important for you to understand the further whatever we are going to learn. Okay, no one in an interview will ask you to explain the life cycle of a bean, or very rarely they ask to explain the life cycle of a bean. But unless and until you know the life cycle of a bean, you will not be able to, means it will be easier for you to grasp things as we proceed further if you know life cycle of a bean. So these two are important. So we have already seen that we in dependency injection we give the permission to Spring container for creating the object. We don't create the object by using new keyword. And this design pattern I had already explained in the previous class as factory design pattern, wherein Spring container acts as a acts as a factory, and we call it as bean factory, where we register our bean. Bean is nothing but object, and it is managed by Spring container. And we ask that bean factory to give the object or bean, and how it creates the object, it depends on what configuration we write in this bean.xml. Okay, I hope this is clear from previous class. Yes, no? Can I get a quick response from
Yes, sir.
everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Wiring. What is wiring? Normal meaning. Normal meaning of wiring.
Connect one part to another part. Connection between
Pardon?
them.
Can you please be a little louder?
One part to another part. Connection between them. Connection between two parts.
Yeah. Wiring is something where we are where we are connecting between one, you can say, one application to other application, or one part to other part, whatever you want. So in this case, wiring will be connecting either object or beans, so that association between them can be created. Association is again, it can be referred to as what, creating a link between two object or two beans. So wiring is done by two ways. One is explicit wiring and the other one is auto wiring. So explicit wiring means, from the name itself says, that we will do the wiring by uh, defining it in a configuration file, by defining it in properties file, or by writing some code. So we will do that explicit wiring. Auto wiring, when Spring does it automatically. So if we don't do it, Spring is smart enough, Spring framework, it will do the wiring automatically, either based on name, based on ID, based on any type of selector. So it will do the wiring automatically. That is known as auto wiring. So throughout the course, or throughout the what to say, the development phase of the project, we will consider auto wiring. We will not do explicit wiring. We will only use and we will only do auto wiring. Because if Spring is doing, then why to write code? I have been telling from previous session that Spring framework is a declarative approach where we tell what we want. We don't we don't say, or we avoid saying how to do it. Remember that restaurant example. So we will be doing auto wiring, but we will learn both explicit as well as auto wiring. So explicit wiring can be done by using setter injection and constructor injection. To some extent, we have learned about setter injection. We will learn about constructor injection today. Setter injection is used to inject values and to reference other beans. So this part we have already done, how to inject values. This part we haven't done, and we will be doing it today. Setter injection by values is done by the property element of beans tag. And we have seen like this: bean ID, any ID we used, that was customer, and we gave the class name along with a complete package name. And then we gave property name, whatever property we defined, and the value, whatever value we wanted. What we will read new is inside customer, if there is some other class on which this customer is dependent, like we have one class called address. So this property name will be address, and we will give a reference name. Now this reference name and this ID, these two must be same. This reference name and this ID must be same, and then we can refer it to all the property of whatever we had, like house number, street name, city. Go through this code. I am giving you 2 minutes time. Go through this code and try to understand it. Try to think that we have one class called customer. which has an address. One entity has customer which has an address to which delivery needs to be done. Address is another class. The bean of address can be referenced by customer bean by using ref attribute of the property element. Customer and address class must be present in the path specified in the bean definition. Path specified means this is the path. So go through this and let me know if you don't understand. If you have understood, just type yes. I can come to know from the chat. And if you have not, then let me know. Take 5 minutes. So I got only 10 response. What about others?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
So
sir.
those who
Yes, sir.
haven't attended the previous session or didn't watch the recording, for them it would be little difficult in understanding this, but for rest, you should be able to understand it. All right. Answer this question. Which one of the following attribute is used to uniquely identify a bean in a spring container?
ID. ID.
ID.
ID.
Excellent. The correct answer is ID. So customer information of an e-commerce application is stored as an object. A customer can have an address. Let's see how to manage object in Spring Container. So we will create a domain. So I will use the one which I created it on that day. So I closed it. Which IDE I was using? IntelliJ. So we had only one model class, that was customer. Now this address, we had here address, but it was represented as string. Now I will replace this address with a with one more model class. So I will create one more model class over here, and I will name it as address. Now address can have private string house number. Sorry, house number can be integer also, but I am giving house number as string because in many cases house number includes letter as well. So private int street number.
Street name.
Street name, then it will become string. I wanted some integer value because rest all will be string. City, state, and then so. So I generated getter setter, and we will be using. Now in this customer, I will remove this address and I will give it as private of type address. Let's delete these two. So I have created this model class. Now in this beans.xml, I need address. So this address, instead of giving a value, now I will give reference equal to addr, let's say 1. And here I will create and here I will create this bean. So bean, what will be the ID?
Address.
Address one.
R1.
addr1, And what will be the class name?
Address.
Class form.nit
NIT model dot address.
model dot address. Very good. And inside this, we will have property name is equal to what was the name? Let's see. House number, street number, house number, and value will be, let's say, 62B. Then again, property name is equal to
Street
street
number.
number. Let's say value equal to 3. And then again, property name is equal to city. Value, property state. Value, Haryana. Property zip code. Value. All right, so I have defined an address. If I want the address here also, so I can define here as address, and I can write here reference equal to ADDR2, and I will change it to ADDR2, and I will do it as E, street number 2, and rest all let's keep it same. So now when we will display this in this main, so I can display this out customer house number, and here I will write customer dot get address dot get house number, and then I can write customer, let's say I want to display city, that's it, house number and city will be fine. Customer dot get address dot
Add
get,
city.
and let's run it. Siddharth, I couldn't get your question. You see, it is displaying 62E and Gurgaon. Why it is displaying 62E? Because I am referring support customer. If I refer here,
ADD2.
yeah, I am referring support customer. So support customer reference is ADDR2, and in ADDR2 this property is 62E. City was same, so it is displayed this. If I refer to only customer, if I change it to customer over here, if I delete this support, and now if I run, so it will display 62. So in that same application, I have changed it to reference type and injected the value over here. So this was the demo. I hope you have understood it. Please, you can, if you want, you can take the snap. we can use toString. What is Siddharth? Can you unmute and ask? I
Sir,
couldn't.
I was telling to use the toString method in model classes.
You can anyways. You can, if you want, you can override toString method, so that directly here in this main method, if you write get address, it will display that. Okay, you can use toString method. No worries. I hope this is understood to everyone. Can I get a response from everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Shall we proceed, or do you want some time?
Proceed, sir.
Proceed.
Proceed, sir.
Next, we will see constructor injection. So it is similar to setter injection. The only difference is, instead of writing property, what we will write? We will write constructor argument. And always remember, constructor argument, it always begins with 0, which means if you are having 3 property defined, the first argument will be denoted by index 0, the second argument will be denoted by index 1, and the third will be denoted by index 2. Okay, please write down um, these two lines, the one which I am putting tick mark on. Note it down. Have you written it? Yes, no?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Yes, sir.
sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So this was by using index. If you want to use constructor argument by using name, you can also use name. So when you are using index, you need to remember which which was the first index and its data type, and accordingly you will have to pass the value. But if you are using name, you don't need to remember, which means this line can be written here and this line can be written here. There will not be any problem. But if you change this index, if you write here 2 and you write here 1, then it will become a problem. Understood? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
The index or the parameter list of constructor
Zero.
begins with
Zero.
Zero. Zero,
zero.
sir.
Easiest question. So constructor injection, let's see how to. Shall I show this demo or will you be able to do it?
True, sir.
Sure, sir.
I need to show this.
Yes, sir.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Can you show?
I thought you will be able to do it on your own. So for that you need to create a constructor first. So create a constructor with all the parameters. So I have created this constructor here, and in beans.xml, here instead of this, instead of property, I will give constructor argument, and I will use index equal to 0.
Sir,
So
we don't
first,
need getter and setter.
yeah, uh, if you are using construct, see setter we don't need, getter we need, because we will be referring by get customer. So this constructor can replace setter. You can delete setter, but getter is required. So customer ID is the first index, then name, then email ID. Customer ID index 0, value 102, then constructor argument index 1, value, what was the name, email ID, phone number, name, email ID, phone number. So name, Leah Clarkson, next, email ID. Three, value 888888, and what was the other? And then it was address. We will say constructor arg index 4, Now we will use reference ADDR. Now let's run this method. Oh, it is support customer. Exception encountered. Error creating bean with the name customer. Why?
Can you go to beans.xml?
Why there is error? Support customer is the ID. Did I miss anything? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Error creating VName customer installation failed, Spring framework failed to instantiate no default. Okay. No default constructor found. Yeah. So you need to give whenever you are defining a constructor, you need to also define a default constructor. Unless and until you define a default constructor. If you don't define any constructor, it's fine. But if you are defining a constructor, you need to define a default constructor. Okay. So it is giving me customer ID is this, name is this, phone number is this, house number, and this. Okay. So this is done by using constructor argument, which is constructor injection. So instead of giving index, you can also give name. Understood? Yes, no?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Many are not responding.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Understood, sir.
All right. Bean scope. This is important. So the scope of bean can be global, can be session, can be request, can be prototype, can be singleton. So singleton, only one object for that bean can be created. Global, it can be accessed from anywhere. Session, it can be accessed only within the session. Request, it can be accessed within the for a single request. Prototype, it can be accessed within the defined scope. That is the prototype, which means where the bean is defined. So we will see this. Scope attribute present in bean tag of the configuration file can be used to change the scope of bean in the Spring container. So you can, when you are defining the bean, you can choose to write scope as well. Scope equal to prototype. So change the scope of bean to prototype. So I think that this you will be able to do it. Now, let's say we have, will you be able to do this? Changing the scope of bean to prototype?
So we only have to add one attribute of scope.
Yeah, you just have to add here one attribute. Let's say I want to change this customer's scope to, let's say, prototype. PRO.
Sir, why we need this scope?
See, prototype means where it is defined. You cannot use outside this application. If you are writing here request, so right now this is not a web application. So if it would have been a web application, it would have only for one single request. The bean would be available. This bean support customer would be available only for one request. If you would have written the scope as session, so this bean would remain active as long as the session was active. If the session expired, this bean's value will also get expired. Similarly, all other scope of bean can be used. Okay.
Sir, by default, what is the scope of the bean?
That I need to check. Actually, I also don't remember.
I
what is
think
the
it's
default.
global.
No, it will not be global. I think it is prototype only.
It's a singleton. Singleton.
Okay. So that is singleton. So please remember this. Very good question. Anyone means the one who asked what is the default. I also forgot this answer. So the default scope of bean is singleton. Now injecting collection. Collection means till now we had only one object of address. Now let's say we have list of address. So list of address means there can be multiple address for the customer. So then what we will do? We can define it like this. Property name equal to, we can give any name, addresses, and then we will write list, and we will say reference bean can be billing address and shipping address. And this billing address, this name must match with this ID, and this name must match with this ID. Okay. Give me a minute. I will be back in a minute. So is it understood how we are injecting collection? Yes, no.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So we will give a name and we will type list, and then we can give any number of references. The only thing we need to define is the ID. Whatever we have mentioned here must be same with the bean that we have defined. So the customer information of an e-commerce application is stored as an object. The customer can have billing address and shipping address. We need to manage these two addresses. So let's see if there is multiple address. We can give here list. List should be from java.util list of address. So that is that everything I need to change. This should be in a get of address. How to do it? So I need to define this for loop. It is not taking inside this. Anyways, I hope you know how to. Okay, I will. Are you comfortable with Java 8 feature? Shall I use it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Very good. So now I will just change this name. Let's give it an address. Why it is not coming? Reference.
ADDR1
Bean.
ID, sir.
ADDR1 reference. Okay, so now when I create the object of customer, it should give me both the address. I will delete this support. What is the problem now? Error creating bean with name customer defined in this. Nested exception, no writable property, invalid property addresses of bean class. Bean property addresses is not writable. Do you mean address? Okay. So did I not write here addresses? What is the name that I have given? Oh. Okay, I should not change here because I need to again change getter and setter, so it's better to change. Yes. See, it is giving me both the address, customer house number. Okay, this is coming from billing address, this is coming from shipping address, although I have not given the name as billing address, shipping address. But I hope you understood. If we can have list of addresses. Okay, is that understood to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Others, please respond.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Yes, sir. Can you explain once?
Pardon me, someone was asking something.
The flow, sir. Can you explain once again this?
The flow. So first we will create customer. Inside this model class, we can have all the attributes which are required, and along with that, if we need to have list of some other class, some other user defined class, we can have that. So in my case, I have address, list of address, and this address is another model class which is having a set of attribute. Now we need to create the object of this by using bean factory or by using spring container. So I have defined beans.xml. In this beans.xml, I have defined this ID as customer, and I am properties we have defined whatever properties I wanted to define, like customer ID, name, email ID, phone number. Although I didn't define email, you can define email also. And then I defined address. So inside this address, I have a property with the name address, and as it is a list of address,